And this is Jenn, right? And welcome to Be Jennuine Podcast. It is my heart that by the end of this episode, you believe that your story matters and that your authenticity is your superpower.
Welcome to the stage, Jenn Gray.
All right, friends, one quick thing before we jump in today's episode. I am so crazy excited to shout from the rooftops. Our podcast partners, our first partner is Dr. John D. Ambrosio. He is the owner, CEO, mastermind behind the Center for Life Enhancement. If you are anywhere within driving distance of Atlanta, Georgia, or you want to hop in an airplane, it's legitimately worth it. He helps people achieve optimal health and function through a unique whole body approach to chiropractic care. At the Center for Life Enhancement, he utilizes wellness stacking, combining BioCharger, gentle yet precise chiropractic adjustments, zone technique and cranial release, and BrainTap to restore balance and enhance the body's natural ability to heal. His focus is on optimizing function, helping clients move, feel, and live better every day. Hi, friends. First of all, welcome to season 2 of Be Jennuine Podcast. I am so excited for a fresh new space to just level things up. It's still me. The mission is still the same, but I've done it for a year now. And now I want to bring in some really, really powerful guests and just let's grow together. So today I am super excited to introduce you to a friend of mine. He is local. So before I bring him on, let me go ahead and tell you a little bit about him. So Logan Lewis is a local entrepreneur, podcaster, and marketer. He is the host of Your Morning Drive, a popular podcast in our local community, and he is crushing it. He interviews people from various backgrounds and professions, such as business owners, community leaders, pastors, musicians, celebrities, podcasters, and everyone in between, allowing them to share their stories with the community. He is also the owner of Hammerhead Creations, where he provides marketing solutions for small businesses on an affordable scale, such as social media management, content creation, consulting, video editing, website, and much more. This dude is making waves in our community, and to know him is to appreciate him. And so you guys welcome Logan Lewis.
Hello. Thank you so much for that wonderful intro.
You are so welcome. I am so excited for this conversation, super excited. And so first of all, the big reason is you're a fellow podcaster and you jumped into this crazy world and put a microphone in front of yourself and said, let's do this thing. So I'm excited to hear a lot from your perspective, but just jump in. Tell us who you are, what you do, what you did do, how'd you get to where you are right now? I know it's a loaded question, but start wherever you want to go, and I'm here for it.
Well, absolutely. And first of all, let it be known, congratulations on season 2. It's an incredible feat. Most podcasters quit before 10 episodes are uploaded. So the fact that you've made it a full year just shows your dedication and your hard work. So congratulations on that.
Thanks, man.
You know, it's also really fun to have the script flipped on you. I'm always reading off people's bios just as you did for me, and to be in the other side of the chair, it's a ton of fun. We love it.
Right.
Who I am is such a complicated question, but I'm going to do the best I can by explaining that I'm just an everyday guy that I just discovered. I worked a lot of jobs, or I have worked a lot of full-time jobs, because podcasting, Hammerhead Creations, Your Morning Drive, it's not my full-time job. It is something that I am pursuing and I would love to make full-time. But as of right now, of course, it's just the side hustle. Right. I've worked a lot of jobs in a lot of different industries, but I've discovered that across all of those industries, amongst all the different roles I've had, I leave each company with a little bit more. And there's always one thing that remains consistent, and that thing is people. I love the people. I get attached to the people. I love culture. Even if the company has the worst culture in the world, I would still find a way to say, oh, but the people are still amazing. You know, I'm just a big people person. And I think that's what helps me do the podcast so well and get to interview people like yourself and then all the other people in the community that make the world go round, but on a local level. And I just do my best. And yeah, like you said, I also have Hammerhead Creations, and that's kind of the umbrella that is the owner of all of my fun creative endeavors, whether it's the podcast or my newsletter or all the other things I'd love to do, but haven't seemed to find the time.
Right.
If you figure out a way to manage your time better, please let me know, because I'm still struggling to figure
The whole
it out.
24 hours, like it just never changes. I'm like, can we just have a couple extra? Like,
I know. Can my body need a little less sleep or food or social life? Can I just store? It'd be great if our life was like Avatar, where we go to bed and then we wake up another being and we get to just do more things. And just
go until that one like fizzles out and it's like Energizer Bunny, and then like start back over. And
right, exactly. So no matter what, you're doing something that fuels your fire. And yeah, there's just not enough time in the day to do what we love to do.
Yeah. And listen, you know how they always say like busy people get a whole lot done. Like I just look at your life, because you have, let's just throw out a couple of roles that you play. So first of all, you're a husband, then you have a full-time job, then you have your side hustles. Okay, speaking of side hustle, how many episodes has your morning drive put out into this world? Let's just talk about it.
As of the day we're recording this, I believe I just recorded, I think 418 or 420, 425, dude, something like that.
Like insanity. Like utter insanity. And then, so you're at like 418. And how many years have you been doing it?
Let's see. I've been doing it I've been podcasting for, this May will be 7 years.
That's crazy. That's like utter insane. And so for anyone else, they're like, oh, I have so much to do. I'm like, no, listen, you think you have a lot to do. And then you go and talk to someone like yourself who gets 18 jobs done in a day. And that's like the fact you've done 418 episodes and you have a full-time job. Can we just like pause that for a moment? For anyone out there who has used your current situation as an excuse, let this just be this little push that, man, if you have a message inside of you, if you have an idea inside of you, there's never going to be the right time. There's never going to be this magical avatar extra, life that we get to live with the extra hours in a day. Like if you want to do it, like just do it and just like jump and make it happen. And I can only imagine that you may have wanted to give up. You may have wanted to be like, is this even worth it? Have you ever asked that? Have you ever asked that yourself?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the 400 plus episodes thing is much to my wife is my biggest supporter, but also my biggest, when are you going to stop doing that and come hang out with me? So that sounds worse than it is, but it's just trying to find the balance that I struggle with. And I think we all struggle with, whether you're an entrepreneur or if you're just, not an entrepreneur. Everyone struggles with the whole work-life balance, how much working is too much work, when are the right times to prioritize family and friends. It's a difficult thing. And I appreciate the kind words on the 400 episodes. It's been a ride. It's been a journey for sure. But I've always told myself, whether one person listens every week or 1,000, I'll probably do the podcast until we have children, and maybe my wife makes me give it up. I don't think she's going to make me give it up because I don't have any other vices. But I'm
about to say there's worse things that you could be doing,
Right. I could be gambling and doing, I don't know.
Yeah.
Anything else worse in the world other than having really fun conversations with really cool people. So
it's so cool. Okay. So take me back 7 years ago. First of all, was it always called Your Morning Drive? And like, what was the spark? What was the start? What was the why behind you starting it up?
Great question. So that's part of the journey, Jen.
I love it.
Your Morning Drive is just the most recent and very likely the forever brand. Your Morning Drive has had a lot of different names. It's had a lot of different looks. It's had a lot of different feels. The show initially started way back 7 years ago I was in college. I was living with my parents. I started listening to podcasts that my friends had sent me from brands like Barstool Sports and
Mhm.
other online media brands that people might have heard of. Total Frat Move was another one that was really big on social media at the time. And these guys were doing podcasts. And my friend said, "Hey, I know you think podcasts might be for like whenever I heard podcasts, I just thought of like Rush Limbaugh, like NPR. I just thought like my grandpa listens to podcasts. I don't podcasts. What?" And
Like, I
so
hated talk radio. Like, I think it's hilarious that I now do a podcast because that was the old school talk radio, right? Like, that's all my dad listened to. And I'm like, oh, yeah.
100%, 100%. And I always just thought like, there's no way these guys listen to my friends. What so I listened to a couple episodes of this show that they sent me, and I said, wow, these guys are having a blast, and they're chopping it up with friends. They're talking about pop culture. They're just talking, and they're having a great time doing it. And I was like, I want to do that. That sounds fun, because as a kid I was always told that I talked way too much, and I found an avenue to allow myself to talk and not get in trouble for it. And at first one day I just woke up it was a Saturday or a Sunday, I think. And I said, you know what? I think I want to start a podcast today. Like, today's the day. So I woke up, drove to Best Buy or Target. I think it was Best Buy. I bought a cheap microphone just because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Sorry, can I curse on here?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. I didn't know what I was doing. I bought a standard, I think it was a Blue Snowball microphone. And I got home. I downloaded Audacity.
Okay.
I made a cheap, silly logo in Canva and just said, I'm going to start this movie themed podcast. It was all about movies, TV, music, the entertainment world, because since a young age, I've always been in love with the movie industry and the entertainment world. Huge movie goer. I would go to the movies in sometimes 2 or 3 times a week in high school. I mean, I just love the movies. And so I said, if I'm going to do a podcast, it's going to be something I know a lot about. So I'm going to do it about movies. And so that was the form of Your Morning Drive. At the time, it was called Hold On to Your Butts, to quote my favorite movie of all time. Do you know that movie, Jen? Do you know that
No,
quote?
listen, I'm the worst. Like, I will straight up, that is not my lane.
No.
Like, I am so amazed. Like, I don't know movie quotes, and I don't know who sings any songs unless it's Backstreet Boys or NSYNC. Then I got you. All right, boy bands. I know all of the words, all of the things. Anything else? Nope. So there you go. So what? Okay. So what movie is it?
Movie is Jurassic Park. It's my fave of all time, and I said I'm gonna have to name it something after Jurassic Park. So it was called Hold On to Your Butts for a good amount of time. And I did it solo. And then a year or so in, I did actually, funny enough, I kind of got the bug for interviewing people, because one of my buddies locally, at the time, he owned a meal prep company.
Okay.
And I thought, oh, it'd be pretty cool to like interview a friend, and maybe whoever listens to the podcast could go and hit up his business. So I interviewed him for 30 minutes or so. And afterwards he said, man, that was a lot of fun. And I was like, yeah, dude, why do you think I like it so much? He was like, have you ever thought about having a co-host? And I was like, no, not really. But are you down? And he was like, yeah. So Pearson jumped on, and he was a co-host. And then another buddy of ours was like, room for one more. So the 3 of us ran Hold On to Your Butts, and eventually we rebranded it into The Binge Boys, because all we did was binge TV and movies. And that was the life of the podcast for a good, probably out of those 400 episodes, I'd say a solid 250 of them are, or maybe 200 of them are movie related. So if you scroll back far enough past all the Your Morning Drive interviews, you'll see The Binge Boys. Now, during COVID, things got rocky because we were recording in person, and things like Riverside and Descript and all kinds of these apps didn't exist at the time. And if they did, they were very much so in their infancy. So we struggled a bit during COVID. We didn't know what to do. So the other two broke off, and I just said, that's fine. You know, at the end of the day, it's my baby. So I'll record it in my own home and release the episodes like I did before. And they were cool with it too, because they were taking on more responsibilities with their jobs and their relationships. So I rebranded the show again back to this name that I came up with, I think with like whatever AI was 3 or 4 years ago. It gave me the name Logan's Lowdown, which very cringe. And I ran with that for a while, and then I was like, you know what? I don't know what I'm doing here. So I took a pause. I paused for maybe a month or two. That's the only break I've taken from the podcast, with exception to maybe my honeymoon and my wedding week. Yeah. But I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, man, I loved the piece of interviewing people. And over the course of those years, I had done random one-off interviews for miscellaneous people, mostly friends and family. But I thought, I love that interview piece. And I myself listened to people like Joe Rogan, Conan O'Brien, Theo Vaughn, all kinds of these comedians, and all they do is they interview people on their podcasts. And I thought, I'm going to give this a go and see how it sticks. And at that point, Jen, I was like, if I don't find a groove in the interviewing people thing, I legit might consider hanging up the mic and at least for a good time until I figured out what I really wanted to do, because no one wants bad content. And I felt like under the Logan's Lowdown name, that's what I was producing. So we're sitting on the couch and I'm throwing names out in the air, and my wife, she's the best creative consultant. She's my unofficial creative consultant, because I just throw stuff at her and she's like, try again. And then I said, what is most everyday people, what do we all have in common? We all have a job, whether you're an entrepreneur or not. We all have jobs, mostly, unless you're on welfare. And no offense to if you're on welfare, you're probably going somewhere. I mean, you're dropping your kids off.
It's a season. That's right.
Yeah, it's just a season for you. Yeah. You'll get back out there. I have faith. 100%. We all have a commute. We all have a drive. And so I'm thinking, okay, let's do this drive or commute. And I think I just threw out, I was like, your morning drive. And we both sat there for a second and thought, that's it. So I went and I looked at domains and podcast names, and it's not taken anywhere. There was no Your Morning Drive anywhere in the universe. And I thought, this has to be a sign. Because even 100%. The Binge Boys, Hold On to Your Butts, those already existed. There were already podcasts that existed with those names. And I said, screw it, who cares?
Right.
But Your Morning Drive did not exist. And so I got the logo made. I secured domains and rebranded it. And it's been an interview show such as this one that we're doing now ever since. And in the 7 years that I've done the show, I've never, I don't want to say popped off, but I've never gotten the amount of recognition and community engagement and just, I don't want to say success, but success than when I changed it to Your Morning Drive. So, and I told myself if Your Morning Drive wasn't going to work, then we'll hang up the mic, and it took off. So here we are. And 400 and some episodes. And I mean, I'm having a blast.
I love that. And first of all, you are such a good interviewer. Like everybody that I've talked to, that we've talked about like having on your show, I'm like, listen, I don't care that you've never been on a podcast before. Logan is the best first interviewee because you are so good. Because I mean, so that's why I was like, I want to know like the why. Like, why did you? I mean, it's not like anybody's just sitting around like, oh, I have nothing else to do. Let me go, put together my own and produce my own podcast and, put in all the blood, sweat, tears just for no reason. And so, like a lot of my podcasts I listen to are like Mel Robbins and Jamie Kern Lima and all of the Ed Milet's, right? Like, so I'm such in the personal development space. And so that made sense as to like my lane of like what I wanted to do. Sure. And then, a lot of people are like crime show junkies like on podcasts, which is such a foreign concept for me that I'm like you really listen to that? Like for real. And they're like, I mean, hardcore. I'm like, hey, to each his own. I love that for you. That's awesome. And now I'm eating my words of all the times I made fun of my dad, because essentially it's like talk radio, but it's podcast. It's so much better. And yeah, so like for you, because so even like for the interviews, you have like every major person in our community, you're getting on a podcast. And so like, what is now I know a little bit behind the scenes because I was on your podcast, but like,
Sure.
what's the goal? Like every time you sit down with somebody, like, is it to create a space for them? Is it, what is that process for you?
Well, that's a great question. And it can go a couple different ways. So if we want to let's go back before I answer the now.
Let's go.
So you asked a little bit about the why, like how is this guy who just decided the 7 years that I've done this hasn't been interview based. It's all been either solo or with friends. So how all of a sudden is this guy, which thank you for the compliments. I appreciate it about interviewing. How is this guy so decently good? I'm not good at giving myself credit if you can't tell.
I know. That's why I'm the same way. That's why I see it and I'm going to throw it at you and I want you to receive it. So thank you for receiving it, because it's facts. I wouldn't say if it wasn't, but I completely understand that.
So I moved around a lot growing up. My dad is in the commercial construction industry. And so every couple years, whenever a project that he supervised wrapped up, the company that he worked for or still works for would move us to a new city, a new state. Mm-hmm. So I moved 10, 11 times growing up every couple years. So I had to restart, make new friends, do it all over again my life got a reset button every couple years, which had its perks, but also had its flaws. But one of the perks was that definitely me, my brother and sister, we don't know a stranger. I mean, we had to be social. I mean, we had to. I mean, I had to move. One of the last moves was moving from Oklahoma City, which I was in my freshman and sophomore year of high school. And then during the summer, moved to DC area for junior and senior year. And moving in high school is tough because everyone's got their cliques. Everybody's got their friends. And so I was scared shitless, Jen. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be sitting alone at lunch. And I was for a few weeks. But after thinking, I've got to be social, I've got to meet people, I've got to do this thing. And through that, I met some great friends that I still keep in touch with to this day from Virginia. And I say all that to say, maybe I'm good at talking to people because I was forced to for several years. I was never comfortable. And I think a lot of people, the thought of inviting a total stranger to a space where it's just one-on-one and you're just talking to this complete stranger for the first time is nerve-wracking as hell to a lot of people. And I just think I can do it because I've done it my whole life. So that was kind of the history, and I think why I can do this pretty decently. So
very deep insight. Like I'm like fascinated and thinking through. I'm like, oh, very similar too. That's so funny. My dad was in commercial construction for the first part of my life for sure. And so every couple of years we were moving. I did get to go to the whole same high school. I switched middle schools, but once high school hit, I got to stay there for 4 years. So I never have thought about that. So as you're saying that, I'm like, oh my word, that's absolutely what that looked like. You have to go in and you have two choices. You can hate the situation and you can hate the change, or you embrace it and you find your new people. And being people like we both are, we weren't sitting in a corner by ourselves. That's no fun. So we're like, we gotta find our people. So that is fascinating. I've never connected that, but you're right. You just learn so many skills being shoved out of your comfort zone and just adapting. So I love that.
Yeah. And we bonded over this when we did my episode together, but in giving the answer to that question, I actually forgot what the initial question was. So could you run that back by me? Because that is
exactly what I
brilliance of
did. I'm like,
podcast brain.
I don't even know what I'm answering right now. So totally. I don't even know what I asked you now that you say that. Oh, I mean, we talked about your why. And then, like, what's the goal every time you sit down with somebody?
Yes.
Like, what's the goal?
So there's not, you know, I've been kind of running with, I got to interview a great person in our community, Ike Reichard from Must Ministries. And he was telling me a story, and he told me a quote that I've just kind of, ever since I heard it, I've just been kind of running with it and making it my brand. So Ike, if you hear this, shout out to you, my friend. Wonderful, wonderful guy from a wonderful organization. He said, the universe isn't held together by atoms, it's held together by stories. And as I said that just now, I just got chills again from as if he just told it to me for the first time. And as soon as he left the studio that night, I thought, that is so true. Because I used to just say, hey, your morning drive, talk to Logan and share your perspective. But then I was like, everybody's got a story. Some people never get the chance to tell that story. And I just want to give people that place. So like you said in my intro, yes, I've gotten to interview community leaders like Ike, pastors, musicians, but I've also interviewed, I don't want to say regular, but everyday people that have some trauma that they want to share, or people that have, you know, had to jump over a couple hurdles in their life to get where they're at. People who have, I just interviewed a great guy who his youngest son at a very, very young age was diagnosed with like stage 4 cancer, and just the struggles that put on their family life and in his marriage. And now the boy is in remission, and we are super excited about that. But I mean, I just get to talk to, yes, community leaders and some celebrities and whatnot, but really just like I said earlier, everyday people that are in our communities. They're in front of us at the grocery store. They're behind us in the movie theater. Just everyday people. And, if I become someone like a local Joe Rogan, like I'd love for everyone to think, hey, you got to do Logan's podcast. Or, hey, you haven't been on Logan's podcast? Oh, you got to do Logan's podcast. Like, I'd love to get to that level and get to the point where I'm working with a lot more businesses to advertise, so that this could be my full-time job. Right. If that would be the end goal, of course, but in the meantime, I'm just having a blast connecting with people, learning more about the community, like I said, and just being just trying to make my way there.
Yeah. Well, so I love that on so many levels. First of all, one of my big taglines is everybody has a story. And I think we assume that like our story doesn't have a place, right? Like even when I coach someone like in social media and I'm like, okay, you got to go live. Like you've got to let people like see you and can really connect with your people. And they're like, I am not interesting. Like that's going to not sell me at all. And I'm like, no, time out. You're not interesting because you see yourself every day. But like other people want to find themselves in you. That's ultimately what we're looking for. We're looking for connection. And so what I love is that you give people the opportunity to find connection in people by giving them a space to share their story in a way that they might not have ever shared their story before. And I didn't know that part of your podcast. And I love that because very similar to the start of mine, it was just solo episodes. I'm like, I'm going to share 20 minutes of mindset. I'm a single mama of 4 rebuilding. Let's get me out of this situation together. And I'm going to show you what it takes to get me where I want to go. Like that was the whole start of it. And I'm doing it by being me, right? Like forget the mask, forget all that. Like that's why it's Be Genuine. And then I got in these networking groups. And then I started to go on one-to-one meetings and just sitting down. I'm like, I don't want to hear your business pitch and I'm not going to pitch you on anything. I just want to know your story. Like, how'd you get here? Like, what got you to this point? And as I'm hearing these stories, I'm like, oh my goodness, like I've got to have you on my podcast because I want people to connect with your story. Because what I love in talking to so many entrepreneurs, and I'm sure you can, resonate with this, is there's always a kind of this pivot part, right? Like at some point, I'm speaking it into existence. At some point, your morning drive is going to be your full-time gig. I don't even have to like doubt it, like halfway believe it. Like I 1,000% believe it. And I am here for it. And I'm cheering you on massively because I think you are a force that this community needs. So let me just throw that out there. The other side is the fact that at some point you're going to have to bet on yourself, right? Looking like it's going to take that. It's not like everything is going to just come easy. And then you're like, oh, well, now it's perfectly laid out. Now I have 6 figures I'm earning with this podcast. And so I can just walk away from my job, right? Every single thing that we step into that's ultimately who we are comes to some point of just betting on ourselves. And you have 1,000 times because you've started a podcast, which 0.2% of the world even ever does, right? So there's already that. But then the next level of you being able to step out and like to the next level, be able to do what you want to do. And so those were the stories I wanted on here. And so I love that you give people the space just to share. And again, you are so good at just bringing out like normal stories and, you know, highlighting, because I think it's so cool. And I would love to hear stories that I'm going to pass it to you after this. I want to hear actual stories of people who have sat across from you in your studio. And they're like, oh my goodness, like, thank you so much for giving me the space to even share that. Like, or I've never shared that before, or I've never talked about this before. I can't believe I just shared that, you know, on a podcast, because you allowed them a space to be vulnerable and they went there. Do you have any like cool stories of any cool, I mean, you don't have to share like personal, but any like really cool moments where you want to share?
Yeah. You know, there's been a few really cool moments, and I think you can relate to this too. And before I get into that, thank you for the compliments. I really appreciate it. It's very nice to hear it come from anybody besides my wife and my mom. It's, you know, I've gotten to the point, a lot of moments like that one I just described with Ike, right? Where he's telling me a story just about a moment in his life that meant something to him. And then it clicks with me and it makes me be able to apply it to something in my life as well. Like switching up the branding and making your morning drive, everyone has a story. I would have never gotten there. Maybe I would have, but not as soon as if I didn't talk to Ike. Or man, I've just learned a lot about just people, like the cancer thing I was just talking about, that kid. I mean, the amount of, like, he was talking about just for the several years of this kid's life. I mean, he just didn't have a childhood. And it's just like talking about the struggles of every day. Like, you know, this kid was so sick that anytime he got the flu or anytime he got the cold, his parents were worried he was going to die. I mean, it was that bad. I mean, hearing stories like that, or, I mean, it's just, it's really, now I give people the opportunity to tell this story, but in reverse, it just kind of shows me more what's out there, I guess. I mean, I'm having trouble putting it into words, but it's one of those things that I would never know this person's experiences if I didn't have this platform. And sure, they're getting to tell their story to help other people in their shoes. But I mean, I just have so much more respect for so many people that, I mean, I was raised to respect everybody unless given a reason not to. But I mean, I just have so much more respect for so many different people in so many different industries, and like people like yourself, single moms that are just doing the damn best they can every day. I mean, it's just, it's very moving. Sometimes people will leave the studio and I'll have an emotional moment to myself, just thinking like, I can't believe that I just got an hour of this woman's time. She's a single mom of 4 and she took an hour to spend time with me. It's very humbling and it's just really rewarding. And I just cherish it.
Yeah, I echo all of that, and I love that. And I also think I think we can be so divided as a culture so often, and stories just unites. Like vulnerability, like when you hear somebody like who's talking about like walking through a cancer journey with their son, Like nobody's asking like, hold on, do our beliefs align before I'm moved by this story? It's just not like that. And so I think what's so cool and what our world needs more of even is these uniting stories that are just, they're human, and just reminding that we are actually human. And it's, I think that's a huge, huge gift just to get to come together and to highlight, those kind of things. I think that's really powerful. But okay. So also, I really want to, first of all, it's totally glitched on mine. Can you hear me? That's what I thought. Hey, see, here's the deal. Here's the beautiful part of it. Okay, here we go.
All right, friends, we still have a lot of goodness to dive into, but really quick, I want to interrupt our convo to let you guys know about our next podcast partner. It's Alpha and Omega Automotive. If you are anywhere near Atlanta, this is another great find. As a single mom, one of my biggest needs is to make sure I have an auto repair shop I can trust. And these guys are your first and last stop for automotive repair, standing for quality, honesty, and integrity. With over 25 years in business, their family-owned business offers trusted service at 2 convenient locations. Whether you need routine maintenance or major repairs, they've built a reputation for delivering reliable professional service. Come see why customers rely on them for all of their automotive needs, because with Alpha and Omega, you are always treated like family.
Hey,
I love that. I love that happened, because I was just about to talk about taking messy action. So I don't know if you heard any of that. Did you hear any of that?
I did not. I apologize.
It's totally fine. It's totally fine. Okay. Well, it was like the biggest moment ever. And so I love that technology. So first of all, before I go back into the deep part, what I do want to say is, if you are out there and you are wanting to start a podcast, just know messy action is a beautiful thing, and just jump, and it's going to fail, and you're going to mess up, and technology is going to just be technology sometimes. And just be yourself and just be genuine, because it's your superpower. I mean, I've heard that before somewhere. But what I was talking about is stories, is how stories are so uniting in the fact that we're not worried about what somebody's beliefs and how it lines up or anything like that when you're being impacted by the journey of somebody else, and when you're being inspired by somebody else's world. And so I think just as a culture, what would unite us so much more? I talk about the fact that I think vulnerability builds bridges, but giving people space to just treat humans like humans, and know that, man, every single one of us is looking through life with a totally different lens. And if we seek to understand each other more instead of trying to change someone, I just think our whole world changes. And so that's why I believe even podcasting. So for somebody out there, it's a huge way to highlight really, really amazing things on whatever that looks like, whether it's movie highlights, or it's comedy, or it's crime scene craziness, or it's inspiration, or whatever that looks like. It's such an amazing platform to unite people. And I know there's still podcasts too, where, it's about decides and all that. And I think it's a beautiful space to find a thing. There's no qualifying questions to be on my podcast that has anything to do with anything other than, hey, I want to talk about you and how you've believed in yourself and how you've stepped into the best version of you and what that looks like. And I just think that more people they assume that their story doesn't matter. And yet your story may be exactly what someone else needs to, first of all, just give hope, right? Just to feel that you're not alone, and to give perspective even. And we don't know that unless we take the time to actually listen. So I love that you create spaces for that.
Yeah. There's been times, excuse me, goodness. Something is going around.
It is. This whole 6 season's been nuts.
It's the worst this season. There's been plenty of times that I'm sitting across from someone, and the thought will enter my head that'll say, this person definitely voted for the opposite person, or this person definitely doesn't agree with you on this. Mm-hmm. Or people will give me an opinion that I don't necessarily agree with. And you know what? I don't care, because that's not what it's about. It's very easy for all of us. I am victim of it. All of us are. We get real wrapped up in a lot of things, especially in an election season that we just experienced. people are passionate, people are excited. It's, you know, that stuff matters to an extent, but when you're sitting one-on-one with someone and someone is crying and telling you that they weren't sure they were going to ever see their baby boy again, you don't give a diddly damn about who voted for who. Right. It is so much more than that. And it's just, like you said, it's just crazy how if we all just listen to each other's stories more. I mean, listen to this. You and I didn't know that both of us were commercial construction people. We would have never known that if we hadn't been in this space. Mm-hmm. So it just goes to show we all have, it's so cliche, but we all have so much more in common than we think. And I think we just need a little more of that.
We do. And that's where, I mean, I think connection can be so surface, right? And that's where, like, so from my experience, like, I was going to these networking meetings, total fish out of water, right? Like, I moved back to Georgia. I jumped in. I was looking for community. I was trying to build a business, and I heard about these networking meetings, and I'm like, what could go wrong? And I show up and I'm like, oh, like, these are like, this is not my thing. But I'm like, I'm going to keep showing up because I really do think I could learn something, and I, whatever. And literally, like, these are my people, like, these are my tribe. But it did not happen until, like I mentioned before, about meeting with these people one-on-one, because you're just passing business cards. So if you're in business and you're just passing business cards, that's so surface. Like, actually let yourself, like, get to know somebody. And what's so funny, so that I never forget the first time I was at one of these meetings, and I mentioned in the front, and like in my little spiel, I'm like nervous, I'm like all like sweating. I'm like, so I have a podcast. I don't talk about it a lot, but I really want to start interview. I probably didn't talk like this. Now I sound like my 12-year-old daughter, and I want to start interviewing business owners. If you're interested, like, I would just love to talk to you after the meeting. And you know how there's always like that one person in the room who you're like, maybe, and you're like, that person would never, ever sit down with me in an interview. That man is the first one who came up to me, and he's a financial advisor. And he's like, I would love to talk to you about sitting in your podcast. And I was like, okay. Like, and I am telling you, talk about misjudging a book. Like, right. I assumed so much. And when I sat down and found out the reason that he even got into financial advising was because his mom, when she passed away, when his dad passed away, an advisor like took advantage of his mom and the assets that his dad left, and like squandered all this money, and he watched it like right before his eyes. So like, wow. It was a passion that made him quit a whole other career and step into this. So I'm assuming successful, stuffy financial advisor is in here just to, one up everybody and tell us how we don't know what we're doing. And it was so different. And had I never stepped out of my own fears and my own insecurities and my own literal judgment, even though I tell us not to judge all the time, which is that natural, imposter syndrome that jumps in our head, and how different life would be if we just sat more across the table from people that we don't know. And that may sound so scary. So the whole takeaway from this podcast may just be, have you ever gone to lunch with the person that you work with every single day and like asked them their story? Right? Like, who are people that you literally do life with, but you know nothing other than their contribution at work, and you have zero idea of who they really are or where they've come from, or maybe the connections and bridges that you even have. And I don't know. What are your thoughts?
No, I love that. And I think that if I'm being, what's the word for it? If I'm predicting it good enough, mm-hmm. I think that's your whole brand, Jen. Like the whole, like when you were talking about the business cards being so surface level, like, hey, I just want to know who you are. Like, I'm not selling you anything. Please don't sell me anything. I'm not interested. I want to know who you are. That's the whole authenticity is your superpower thing. Like, that is what is ringing those bells of like, because if you did that to me, I'm walking away thinking that's the most genuine interaction I've ever had at a networking event, because everyone's just like, oh yeah, well, we should work together. Here's a business card. Oh, here's my business card. Maybe we'll chat over coffee. It never happens. and you just develop this stack of business cards. And how many of those business cards can you look at and see, oh, I had a genuine interaction with that person. I really like that person. And it's not about what you can do for you and what you can do for me. It's like, okay, what if I already have a financial planner? Well, I hear that guy's story. Anytime anybody brings up, I need financial planning, I'm bringing up that guy. I mean,
1,000%. Yep.
I've got so many people that people are like, oh, I need a chiropractor. Oh, I need a contractor. Oh, I have a endless address book in my freaking pocket. I'm like, you should talk to this person. Hey, I need home insurance, or I need life insurance. Yeah, you should talk to Jenn. Like all of the things. It's just such a beautiful thing. But like we said, we look at us assuming years and years and years ago, NPR, talk radio. There's no way we could ever. And now I'm willing to say that, I mean, I'm the best version of myself when I'm having conversations like these with people.
Yeah. 100%.
It's, if you went back 10 years ago, 7 years ago and said, in 10 years, you'll be a podcaster and it'll be your favorite thing to talk to complete strangers about their lives, I'll go, bullshit.
You've lost your absolute mind. Yeah.
But
100%.
I love it all.
Okay. So speaking of which, I want you, as we're kind of wrapping up, I want you to talk to the person who's scared to take the leap, who has an idea, thinks it's crazy. First of all, I love that you shared your whole journey of the podcast, because I mean, listen, whoever's listening, it cannot be worse than Logan's lowdown. Okay. It cannot be worse than that. Like, there is hope. Okay. That's not it. Just kidding. But like, what would
you're
you,
not wrong.
what would you tell somebody, like, what are your, like, practically how, and then practically just like the mindset of why they need to jump.
I think about this question a lot, and I don't want to just give the typical, like, insert Shia LaBeouf, just do it thing. I'm so passionate about this answer. If you like something, if you are like, oh, I want to start a YouTube channel. Oh, I want to start making stop motion videos. Oh, I want to become an artist. I want to start painting. Just freaking do it. I mean, I think a lot of people have this, especially creatives, a lot of people have this creative bone in their body, but they were raised in an environment where creativity isn't encouraged. I per se, I don't want to say it wasn't encouraged, but I grew up in like an engineer household. So it was like, master your math, master your science, get all that stuff going, and then focus on the art and the drawing and the tech and all that stuff. And whenever you finished your math. So it's like, I think a lot of people are scared just because they're not sure what they're doing, or they're not sure if the people around them are going to improve. Dude, life is way too short to care about what other people think. And for the longest time, I think I held back because I've wanted to do this forever. I wanted a YouTube channel. I've wanted to do something like this forever, but I just never did because I thought, what are my friends going to think? What are my parents going to think? Who cares? Just do it. Who freaking cares? If your podcast pops off, you're going to wish you did it sooner.
1,000%. You don't know. And I mean, literally, that's what I love about it. Like, what have you lost? Like, if it's something that you love to do, you love to talk about, if nobody listens to it, at least you had fun. I mean, like you said, there's worse things to want to do.
And, another thing that I could honestly say that has really helped me out is just be open-minded, be open to criticism. No one likes to hear they're doing a bad job. No one likes to hear, oh, that could have been better. Be open to the criticism. I've rebranded how many times because people said, oh, that's not great. That's not great. Okay. And just take mental notes. Just be open-minded, be open to new things. Just take the leap. Just do it.
Yes. Yeah. Back to the cliche thing. It's just, that's literally what it is. And my favorite part of this phrase, like, just do it, is like, like, it's not that big. Like, just go, like, just do it. Just jump. And if you listen to this podcast for any length of time, you've heard me talk about the arena and Teddy Roosevelt quote that just says, like, don't expect to know what you don't know until you jump into the arena. Like, just get in there. And that's where, like, this whole season 2 thing, people are like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome. And honestly, just to be straight up with everybody, like, all it is a shift in my mindset. Because I started the podcast and I'm like, I'm just going to jump and I'm just going to take messy action. And now I've transitioned into full-time keynote speaking, and I want to just show up different. I want to have different kind of guests. I want to have courage in who I invite to be on this screen with me. And so for me, my message is still the same. So for somebody else, maybe it's you having to become a different version of yourself, or stepping into that and saying, no, you know what? Yesterday I wasn't a podcaster, but today I am, and I'm a beginner. And I'm going to start as a beginner, and I'm going to ask a whole lot of questions, and I'm just going to do the thing and not expect to act like I'm this seasoned, with top 1%, podcaster over here, no, just show up as genuinely who you are as a beginner, and just do it. And then you level up. Change your name 14 times if you need to. Doesn't matter. Like, there's no rules. And that's the thing. That's the beauty of it, right? There's just no rules. Like, just do you, like, genuinely. And, but just do it, because if it's something that's inside your heart, I think that's amazing. And don't wait for yourself to have enough time. Listen to our man, Logan, like, watch his life. Like, he doesn't have the time to do it. He makes the time for it. And if you are looking for an excuse, you're going to find it. If you're looking for a reason, you're going to find that as well. But just some fun stuff. So, okay, movie buff. So you said Jurassic Park. Is that that's favorite all-time movie for you, like, ever?
Yeah, I went back and forth a long time whether my favorite was Jurassic Park or The Lion King. I mean, I love The Lion King. I'll watch it when I'm having a bad day. I'll just throw it on. It's just a nice comfort movie, I think, for me. The Dark Knight also. I mean, Batman. Love Batman.
Yeah.
I mean, anything nerdy. I mean, you could see my wall of nerd Lego sets and stuff. I built that literally like an hour ago, the Marvel thing.
That's amazing. Okay, so speaking of nerdy stuff, this is a random question. Do you know the account Pizza Beard Party?
I don't.
Okay, well, first of all, go follow it. And he happens to be my brother-in-law. And you're gonna have him as a guest. You're gonna fall in love with him. He's freaking amazing. He was like really, really big on Vine when Vine was a thing. And then do you remember Vine? Are you too young?
Yeah, I love Vine.
Okay. So he was like, super, super big up in all the Vine things. But anyways, he's incredible. And you guys would, as I'm talking to you, I'm like, oh my gosh, him and Jake, y'all need to be best friends. He's amazing. He's like a real life cartoon character in human form. Red beard, the whole thing, like all of that. So
you know this guy?
He's my brother-in-law. He's married to my sister. So yes.
Oh my God. This guy looks freaking awesome.
He's amazing. I mean, literally my kids got like the uncle like trophy. I mean, he's like so much fun. So he's amazing. But as you're talking, I'm like, oh my goodness, I got to connect you guys. So and all of you out there, you got to go follow Pizza Beard Party. He's a great dude.
Yeah, I'm absolutely going to do that. He looks awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to connect with him. He'd be a great guest.
He's your people. Oh my gosh, he'd be so much fun. So I love that. Okay, and then what about like growth? Like I think everybody has their own level of personal growth and like wanting to become the best version, whether it's listening to other podcasts or it's reading or it's working out. What are you doing to grow?
Wow, that's a good question. What am I doing to grow? I think kind of the advice that I just gave. I've been more open to criticism, more open-minded. I mean, ultimately, we don't grow if we stay in the same mindset forever. And like you said with your season 2 thing, I mean, you're coming in and you're thinking about things differently, and that's awesome. That's growth. I think a lot of people think of growth of like, oh, well, I swim in the slow lane right now, and I need to level up, and I'm not growing if I'm not swimming in the fast lane. That's not true. If you improve even a millisecond, I'm using swimming as an analogy because we were swimmers growing up. If you improve even a fraction of a second of your time, that's improvement. That's growth. If you change your methods. If you stay at the same time, but maybe changed your methods, and maybe you're more productive at work, maybe you're more productive in the pool or on the field or whatever, that's growth. You don't have to level up per se to grow. I mean, I like to think that we grow every day. We learn something new every day. I know I do when I do the podcast. I know when I've worked in all these different industries, I'm constantly learning. That's growth. So
1,000%.
like I said, just being open-minded and being willing to hear different perspectives and just hear other stories again. I mean, I really like what you said about the coworker that you sit next to. I mean, think about just working next to the same person for 15 years and never knowing what they do on the weekends besides hey, how was your weekend? Oh, good. How was yours? Oh, good. And that's all you know about that person? Could never be me. Could never be me. Just
again, that's growth, right? I think opening your eyes to things that you want to be different in. And even that, like one of my favorite, I really have been trying to close, but one of my favorite examples is like, if you're looking out on like a forest and what do you see? You see this like amazing, beautiful forest of all the trees. Yeah. But what happens so many times, like you're not looking at an individual tree. Like you don't even notice like the intricacies and the beautiful leaves of like one individual tree. You're just looking at like the forest as a whole. Well, we do that with life, right? You're like, we walk through, I mean, how many days are we walking through places, right? And we just are in our own world, our own thoughts, our own thinking and all that. It's like a forest of people. But like, even if we just like started to notice a tree, just like actually like took interest in one person, I am telling you, there is one thing everybody needs. I don't care if you are a hugger. I don't care if you like words of affirmation. Everybody wants to be noticed and they want to feel heard and they want to feel like they belong. And to give somebody that in a day, man, if you're looking for a way to grow, that might be a really good direction to grow. And that doesn't take a whole lot other than taking your eyes off of yourself for half a second and giving somebody else a notice. You just never know. You never know. I mean, we all could probably go through stories of people who've been that for us. And again, you can't control somebody else, but you can only control yourself. So I love that. That's so good. So last, the whole mantra of this whole podcast is that our authenticity is our superpower. And I feel like we've talked about this. It's woven in our whole conversation all night. But are there any final thoughts that you would share of how you feel like your authenticity is your superpower and how that's played out in your own world?
Sure. That's a great question. And, I think my authenticity, I think it's really when I sit down with folks, and like you said, we've been talking about this whole conversation, but being authentic and not having anything to gain from listening to some of these people's stories. I mean, sure, if I work with cool business owners, it's cool to partner with the business or work with the business or work with the business owner. But I mean, to get to sit down and to hear people's authentic, true self and for them to say, what's the catch? Or, what do you want from me? I'm like, nothing. I just want your true, authentic self. I said that I'm not good at taking compliments, but I'll after every one of my podcasts, I ask people for feedback. And I'm starting to slowly convince myself that the things are true, that I just like to create a safe space. And by doing that, by being true to myself and not having ulterior motives, being that authentic version of myself has gotten me to be a more successful podcaster because my guests tell better stories. They open up more, therefore people enjoy the episodes more. I'm thinking that just being authentic can just take you to new heights. Like, how many relationships have you developed because at networking events you've said, I don't care about the business card, I just want to know who you are? How many friends in the community have you made that you never would have done that if you just swapped business cards and said, had a good day? I mean,
6 months. I mean, I'm 100% proof of that. For 6 months, I was still hanging out when I didn't have my kids. I'm at home by myself every night. Like, and I wasn't like wallowing in self-pity. I was just like, this is a season. I'm by myself and it's fine. I'm looking for my community, but it wasn't about looking for my community. It was about actually stepping outside of myself and doing that. So yeah, I am absolutely living proof of that for sure.
Yep. So this is your proof, ladies and gentlemen. This podcast that you tuned in, that's your proof that authenticity matters.
It's it. It's everything. And I'm telling you, I love that. I love that your childhood who would have thought moving around all these places was just preparing you to be super comfortable in front of anybody, you know, again, and somebody would look through that as a lens and could be mad at the situation and say, I never got to have one of those friends from kindergarten through senior year, and woe is me. And instead, your authenticity is your superpower, Logan. The fact that you did that literally prepared you to be the kind of podcast host that you are right now. And I love that you've connected that and can appreciate that. So yeah, you're amazing. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Again, I think even though you're 418 episodes in, I can't wait to see like 800, and that's math, maybe 836 episodes down the road, when you are the man of the hour, right? That the whole community knows you. And already I will just say, like, your name is a name amongst networking groups. It's like, oh yeah, just a Logan's podcast, and you are a first name basis. So you are doing good work. You are bringing people together, and it's a proud moment to get to stand with you and to be a part of your morning drive. So thank you for sharing your night with me, and for just sharing the hope for anybody listening that your story matters. And if we all pause a little bit to listen to somebody else's story, it literally could change our life. So with that, I just want to say to everyone listening that I love you and I'm super thankful for you. And that may sound weird because I may not know you, which is kind of a weird thing. But there are people out there that hate people for absolutely no reason. So I'm going to choose to love you until I meet you and find the millions of reasons there are to love you. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week, and keep being genuine.